Deafrowe with Deafrowe TV, and I'm back again with another review. And as you can see, this is the last part of the Day of the Triffids. As you can see here, this is part 6 of the Day of the Triffids of the BBC miniseries from 1981. One of the best interpretations of the book, in my opinion, and of this genre of the series. 1981, Day of the Triffids. 6 years later, in part six, like I said in part five, they were like weeks and months out from when it happened. So now we're skipping in part six, the last part, 6 years later after all the events of the first five parts. Well, before I get started on this, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you can go back and, look at some of the other stuff I've been doing and look at the new stuff that's going to come out later. Go back and watch parts 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about part 6 here, 6 years later. And as you can see from the little still photos here, that pretty much the cities are overrun by plant life again. Everything, the plants, animals, and everything are taking over pretty much again. And we skipped a bill traveling in from a city, getting supplies for the farmhouse that he pretty much ended up in part 5 after finding Joe. So he's essentially been in that farmhouse he found Joe in for 6 years. And since then, Susan has grown up as well. The pregnant blind people, the blind woman, she had her baby. Her name is Alice. And then on top of that, Bill and Joe have also had their own kid, and his name is David. And they consider Susan to be pretty much their daughter at this point because it's like Bill has taken Susan under his wing and teaching her to fight these Triffids and everything. And she knows as much, if not more, than Bill about these Triffids and the way they. So here you see Susan and Joe opening up the gate for him to come in with the Land Rover here, and like they got this fence up around this entire complex, this entire farmhouse, and it's electrified fence, but they have to keep the generator going in order to keep the electricity on the fence. As you can see, the switch right there close to Joe's head as she's putting the sign down. And what's so bad is they're having to conserve the fuel because they're running out of fuel and you're running out of places to find fuel. As you can see, when he comes back in, and he's got several items, and they're asking him like, "What took you so long this time around?" And he said he had to change the wheel 3 times because of the roads are so bad. And then had to take a 40-mile detour because, like I said, it's been 6 years later. I'm guaranteed stuff has been washed out. Roads are no longer existing in some places, possibly. And then we get to meet David here, which is their son, Bill and Joe's son, played by Dennis Gilmore. And since Susan has grown up, she is played by Lorna Yabsley in this part 6. It was different, obviously, in part 5. Uh, so yeah, and then you also meet the blind pregnant woman's daughter, which is Alice, and yeah, so and they call him, and Alice calls her Uncle Bill. So they pretty much have become their own little family in this farmhouse in this on this farm, and none of them want to leave, but they're running out of options of fuel. They need fuel for the tank, for the gas, for the generator to keep the fence electrified, but they also need fuel for the flamethrowers that they use to burn down the Triffids they get in, or they burn them to keep them off the fence. Uh, so they're running out of resources on top of trying to, plant food, plant seeds, keep things going for themselves, in order to eat and survive. And what's happening is Bill and the rest of them are spending all their time just surviving rather than trying to figure out a way to get rid of these Triffids. Because Bill, he could possibly research these things and figure out a better way to kill them, but he hasn't had time to. He's just been surviving pretty much, and that's kind of what it's come down to for the last 6 years, is just surviving on this farm. But Joe, she's in love with staying there. She loves her life with her kid and Bill, to the point that she doesn't want to leave the farmhouse ever. But Bill's just like, we got to face reality. We're not going to be able to stay here if things keep going. And so when I go to the cities, there's not that many Triffids left in that area. They're coming out here because they know we're here and they can travel out here. And then Susan goes on to tell him, was like, look, there's 1,000 out at the fence right now when I counted this morning. And of course, she's telling him here, there's over 1,000 right outside. This is the new Susan right here. And she's like, just 10 days ago, she had wiped them all out. Like there wasn't any 10 days ago. And all of a sudden, there's 1,000 more that show up. So the Triffids are becoming a bigger and bigger problem as they go along. But the blind couple pretty much are saying like, look, you built a good fence. They're on the outside, we're on the inside. Nothing's gonna. But Bill's trying to explain to them is like, it seems like they're getting smarter and smarter. And Susan even says, like, even when I change the rhythm of when I turn the generator on and to turn the fence on, it seems like they know. They know when to stay away or when to attack. In case of point, the next morning, Susan gets up to go to the kitchen and realizes the house is surrounded by Triffids in every corner. And of course, Alice is trapped in the bedroom with David, but one of the tentacles are trying to come through the window right here and get him, as you see here. He's trapped against the wall. It's like he's basically just standing up against the wall trying to keep that stinger away from hitting him. And yeah, I mean, it's things are starting to fall apart pretty much. And as you can see here, they get the flamethrowers out and they go out there and burn them all to the ground, him and Susan. And it only works for a limited time though. But that's the problem, is how many more Triffids will come after they get kill these, and how much fuel will they have left for the flamethrowers in order to kill them. None of this stuff's gonna last forever, so they have to find some way to sustain themselves somewhere else, or just some type of alternative. And Bill is racking his brain pretty much trying to figure out, because he wants to survive. He wants his son to survive. And so him and Susan go on like a little vacation since he's been away for a little while. They go to the beach. And Susan's like, you ain't got to worry about the Triffids on the beach. She's like, no, they can't really walk on this shell. It's like all rocks, basically. They can't really root down in there and walk across it. It's kind of like concrete. But anyway, they're talking about the different things. Well, he calls it shingle. They can't walk on shingle. Yeah, and they're just reminiscing about, she just really, she doesn't want to sound depressed or anything, but at the same time, she likes her life the way it is now better than what it was before. Even though things look depressing, she doesn't want to change things. She doesn't want to leave the farm, so she convinces Bill's like, "Look, we can stay on the farm. We got to make it work or whatever." But she brings up the question. It's a pretty good question. It's like, what do we tell our kids of what happened to the world that was before us? And Bill's like, well, we know we created the Triffids. Who's to say we didn't create those comets? And she asks, like, well, how could we have created those comets? Well, and Bill goes on to say, look, we have all these satellites up in the sky, up in the space. What's to say one of those satellites was not a weapon? And what's to say that that weapon accidentally went off like it wasn't supposed to and sent out this radiation sparks across the entire world and blinded everybody? Say it was a weapon just designed to be at closer contact to the enemy and only blind the enemy, but something accidentally set it off and set it on the whole world. And then he says, the only reason I think that is because the radiation burning out your eye sockets, your retinas or whatever, so you can't see anymore. And then on top of that, all the people that who had this issue with the retinas and going blind end up getting some type of disease that ends up wipes them out. So he's, this mysterious disease just comes out of nowhere and wipes all these blind folks out, and leaves the sighted people alone for a small period of time. But if they stay around too long, they end up getting the disease too. So he's like, what's to say it wasn't a weapon that just went bonkers? So he's just speculating, wondering what it could be and what they should tell their kids as they grow up. And Joe makes a pretty good statement after that, basically saying like, well, you know, if anything, our children can't mess it up any worse than what the last generation messed it up, and pretty true. Well, on their way back, Susan's coming out of the house, waving them down. She's like, "Guess who's here? Guess who's here? Somebody's here in a helicopter." And what she did she wanted the helicopter to come down, and so she signaled them with a burn barrel, and got the helicopter to come down. And the helicopter, the guy that ends up being in the helicopter, is none other than Mr. Coker himself. He's back. And he tells him, it's like, yeah, after crashing a couple of helicopters and trying to learn how to fly a helicopter by just reading a book, I finally got a hang of it. And then I realized I need to come look for you. And you told me that certain areas, I remember what areas you were saying. And so he sees Joe for the first time since they did the whole kidnapping back there at the university 6 years ago. And he apologizes to Joe for what he did. And Joe's like, I'm just happy to see another person. I don't really care what happened in the past. Past is the past, whatever. And Coker's like, I appreciate that. And I've come to return the favor. And he basically says, we've set up an island. And the island is empty of Triffids. We've managed to get them off this island, and it's the island of Wight, is what he tells them. The Isle of Wight, my bad. And he said, but anybody that chooses not to stay with us on the Isle of Wight, we'll let them go and do on their own thing, and we don't just put them back to the Triffids or anything like that. We don't just throw them back to the mainland Triffids and all that. There's other islands along the channel that don't have Triffids as well, and we let them go there and do what they want to do. But the main island that we have is the Isle of Wight, and we have gotten rid of all the Triffids, and now we're on the defensive, and we're going inland trying to kill more Triffids and take them out before they can root up. But he said every now and again some of the seeds will blow over to the island by wind, but they get them before they can do anything. So yeah, that's the whole reason Jack Coker is back. He's been wanting to find Bill this entire time because he knows Bill used to work at a Triffid farm and knows how to kill the Triffids. And he tells Bill, if you come to our island, you will have more time to do your research and actually figure out a better way to kill these things off so we can take back most of the mainland away from these creatures. And basically, he's like, you'll have a chance to actually just not survive, but to thrive and actually do proper research and figure out how to get rid of these things rather than just, day by day burning them and, getting by. And so they're all excited, including, Susan. She's like, I haven't seen, 'cause Susan was just found as a kid. She hasn't seen anybody else other than the people that are in this house. And she's just ecstatic about trying to go to an island where more people are. And yeah, so they get talking about it, and then, you know, of course, Bill's like, "Yes, we gotta go. We gotta go. It's the best way and the only way we're going to be able to beat these Triffids, and we have to beat these Triffids in order for our son and our daughter, which they consider Susan their daughter at this point, and it's the only way that they will have a life growing up is if we get rid of these Triffids, and then they can create something for themselves." Well, the next day, and I like this shot, by the way. This is a cool little shot. It's like a shot from a window. Anyway, the next day, there's like this military vehicle coming up to the farmhouse. And apparently, they saw the smoke signal as well as Jack Coker did. And they decided to come on in to the house. Oh, first of all, I want to get this shot here. Let's see if I can get that. Him and Susan singing the Yellow Submarine on the way back from a supply run. Anyway, this shot right here, I love this shot. They're on some back road headed back to their farmhouse, and this is basically a shot from inside of a window of an abandoned house that it's been abandoned for, obviously the last 6 years. It looks so desolate, dusty, and abandoned. Just a cool shot to me. Anyway, they get back to the farmhouse. And of course, this, military dude, he's sitting there telling them, like, look, we're coming in, we're going to take over this place. And, you know, basically, this guy and this group of people, militarized people, have decided they're going to go around and create these small little complexes where they will put 10 blind people to one sighted person in every place. And since there's already 2 blind people here, we just need to bring 18 in for you 2. And then they're going to take Susan away and put her somewhere else where she can do more work somewhere else. And, of course, Bill, they're keeping calm. They're not trying to, give these military guys any indication that they're not going to go along with this plan. And Bill's like, okay, okay. So basically, I'm gonna be like a feudal lord over this land, and all these people are gonna be working for me and all this stuff. And he's like, okay, I understand that. Sounds good. Bill's been through all this before. He knows it doesn't work. He knows you can't outnumber your sighted people with unsighted or blind people, or they will go nuts. Mentally, physically, the whole 9 yards, they will break down. So he knows it doesn't work. And this military guy coming in trying to start this new program when he knows he's already tried to do something similar, and Jack Coker had already tried to do something similar, and they know it failed, and it failed miserably. So, yeah, this military guy coming in and basically setting them back to square one 6 years ago, to where Jack Coker was trying to do the same thing. It's not sitting right with Bill, Joe, and the rest of the family in this farmhouse. And at this point, this is when Joe and Bill finally decide, like, look, we got to get to the Isle of Wight where we're welcomed and they want me before this guy gets what he wants. So they decide that night, and they especially don't want him to just take Susan away, because they know how that's going to end up. Susan's going to end up getting killed or raped or something like that, with all these men around just doing whatever the hell they want with her. So it ain't going down like that shit. So that night, him and Susan come up with a plan just to get him drunk. It's like, oh yeah, we just want to get to know you better. We let us share our finds with you. So that you don't think we're bad people. And of course, the military, the folks, they were like, well, yeah, we'll do that tonight. And so they take him up on their offer of staying the night and getting drunk and everything else. And that night, as they're getting drunk, Bill slips out for just a minute while he's gone to get the wine. He slips out for just a minute and gets a jar of honey and pours it down the tank of their military vehicle, as you can see here. And then sets about to get him even more drunk. As you see, one's already passed out on the couch right here, and the other two is smoking cigars and just drinking as much as they could possibly get their hands on. And so the next morning, as they are passed out drunk, Bill and the rest of them slowly and quietly creep out of the house with the blind couple, the two kids, Susan, Joe, all of them. They're going. They're not, screw this. We're getting out of here. You're not gonna stick us with 18 blind folks and then take our daughter away from us at the same time. Screw you guys. We're out. Going to the Isle of Wight. We ain't waiting for the summer, because that was the deal that originally after Bill had talked to Jack Coker about going to the Isle of Wight, Susan convinced Bill to say, just stay at the farmhouse one more summer. Just savor it for one more summer, and then we'll go to the Isle of Wight. She was all for going to the Isle of Wight. She just wanted to stay a little bit longer. But after these military folks show up and start demanding that they do these things for them and everybody else, the greater good and all this crap, Joe ain't on board with that no more. She's like, we gotta go now. So yeah, they all climb into the Land Rover. They get to the gate, turn the generator off for the fence, which unelectrifies the fence. And Bill drives right through the gate, knocking it down with the Land Rover, as you see here. If I can get a good shot of it. And of course, that lets all the Triffids in to get after the military folks. Right here we go. Yeah, this shot right here. And yeah, you see all the Triffids are just waiting outside this gate. I mean, they know they're coming. They know they're coming. So, yeah, he takes down the gate with the Land Rover right here. Leaves the gate wide open, unelectrified, and lets all the Triffids in to go after the military guys, which they cannot start their vehicle up because it has honey in it now. And so, yeah, that pretty much ends part 6 for the most part. They escape, which would they escape something that would end up pretty much killing them if they had stayed and tried to do what they had asked them to do. They were already having a hard time farming the land with that many Triffids around them all the time. They were only farming the land with to make enough food for themselves, and then this dude wanted to come in and throw 18 blind folks in there with them, and then on top of that, provide them with food that they were growing themselves when they could hardly do it already because they were always having to fight the Triffids and burn them down. Well, if you're burning Triffids down all the time, you're more likely accidentally burning down some of your crop as well in the process. So, yeah, that's I mean they get out, and then towards the end, Joe turns to Bill and says, "One day we'll come back. One day we'll come back." Bill says, "Yes, one day we might come back. Maybe it'll be our sons and daughters that come back, but we will take this land back from the Triffids." And that ends the series with part 6 of the Triffid. Now, as you can see on my critic list, I give this whole entire series like I would say a 96%. I think is what I give it. It's a 5-star miniseries for me. I love this show. I've watched it so many times now, and even gone through it in so far as to get prepared for these reviews. I watched each episode twice to take down notes. and learn things too. I mean, like where the Isle of Wight is, and the the Channel Islands and all this other stuff that are around that area that they're talking about, and how it makes sense why they are able to clear those islands so fast, and why they will want to bed down there, but pretty much, and fight from there outwards to the mainland. It makes a lot of sense because you got your back to the water, and as long as you can keep the island clear, you have somewhere to fall back to. So pretty cool in my opinion. But yes, this is an overall 5-star miniseries for me. The Day of the Triffids, 1981. 5 stars, 96% for me, Deafrowe, and that is me out.